suspecting foul play. I saw somebody put it beautifully, of course. These opinions are speculative. It says, hey, the governor dissolved the pension board and promised to punish some civil servants. And in a few minutes, the Secretariat goes up in flames. Is it a coincidence? Well, that's how conspiracies are phrased, right? You don't quite know if this is just a coincidence or it's arson. You can't tell. As a matter of fact, right now on WhatsApp, someone has already sent a similar comment. It says, good afternoon, Sam. The burning of the podium block was politically motivated. That's why I say this is just after the governor dissolved the pension board, inaugurated the sole administrator. This fire incident occurred as alleged, but I'm urging the governor to set up a panel of inquiry to ravage those that are involved. That's from Ipalibo Taylor Harry. So people are already suspecting. Why? Because the timing seems too convenient to be coincidence. But my concern is not about who did, because you and I can never tell. If investigation is done properly, then it should reveal the cause of the fire. My focus is on the damage and not the cause. What was damaged? Thankfully, the governor has spoken. The head of service has spoken as well. Say, nothing serious. The pension part was not really affected. That's good. But this should be a wake-up call. Because what if it was? It leads to my next question. Are the records digitally backed up? You see those things we see in movies where somebody is about to be fired or there's some incriminating information. There's data in an office that if made public could lead to the death of someone's career or even the death of the person. What do you see? Next morning in the news, the building is up in flames. And it used to work for action movies, mafia stories, and all of that. But in this day and age, it will be a shame that your record only exists in hard copy in a building and nowhere else. So I'm going to ask again. Are the records digitally backed up? Whether it pertains to civil servants, whether it houses the files of those who did one or two during the emergency rule, are they digitally backed up? Let me give you an example. Let's say that you start off a postgraduate course, right? After graduating, you decide to go for your master's or whatever, you pursue some degree. Now, you would obviously know that the institution where you have enrolled will ask for your transcript, right? And so, there will be correspondence to your school where you graduated from to send the transcript to the new institution where you're trying to do your master's. It's usually with exams and records, if I'm not mistaken. Now imagine that you start that process and the school gets back to you. Say, sir, Sam Chinedu, we really can't send your transcript. You say, why? What's the problem? I graduated from here. Say, unfortunately, sir, 2 years ago, the exams and record office went up in flames. You're like, okay, so what does that have to do with anything? Say, unfortunately, sir, your file, the original copy, was in that building. You already get where they are going, but you don't want to believe it. You say, so what are you trying to tell me? Say, sir, as it is now, we don't have any record of you passing through the walls. It's more than 4 walls, but the walls of this school. Now you can see how crazy, let me use that word, that would sound. That in this day and age, there is no backup. Exactly. You don't want to believe that an institution like that will not have a database. So I'm posing the same question to River State. Are the records digitally backed up? Is the civil service digitally compliant? Is there an updated database that if anything happens to the building or the files or the full office, whether fire gutted the crèche, the toilets, the administrators, this one, the office of the... Can we still have access to those records? Because every year we have Civil Service Week, and they gather. And what they say we need to deploy AI. We have to optimize the implementation. We must be digitally forward. The focus on this, and everybody pretends to understand what they are saying and goes home. Now, at a time like this, these questions have to be asked. And if the answer is no, I don't think that answer should be made public. The state should do something to ensure that the records are updated and backed up. You need to digitize the system. This is a wake-up call. So that whether it is foul play, somebody set the fire there to destroy something, or it's an accident, it does not cause irrecoverable losses. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk. We're moving over to the next headline. The Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASSAN, has responded sharply to Vice President Kashim Shettima's defense of Aliko Dangote's business interest and ongoing labor dispute. Shettima had urged respect for Dangote's investment, emphasizing their importance to Nigeria's economic future. In retaliation, I'd rather use the word response, PENGASSAN accused the federal government of siding with Dangote and undermining workers' rights. The association statement suggests a growing tension between labor unions and the government over the handling of industrial relations and the protection of private investment. This development follows a series of confrontations, including a significant strike that disrupted power generation gas supply by over 1,100 megawatts, highlighting the escalating impact of the dispute on Nigeria's energy sector. So if you're not up to speed, well, PENGASSAN had a rift with Dangote sometime last week or the week before. It led to a strike. Federal government called for reconciliation. They went in, came out, and then went in again. Now, the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, made a statement on a public platform, and PENGASSAN responded, believing that that statement was suggestive of the federal government supporting Dangote. But you see, PENGASSAN, in this particular case, based on publicly available information, PENGASSAN failed to obey the most basic rule of communication. What is that? Listen. They didn't listen. I can say that very boldly based on the response they gave. And this conversation will not make sense if you don't know what Shettima said. So let's hear exactly what the Vice President said. Then maybe you get a better picture of how out of line PENGASSAN's response sounds.
I wish to call for caution, retrospection, and a deeper sense of patriotism from both the labor and the organized private sector in defining and improving the relationship between labor and industry in the interest of maintaining our steadily improving economic fortunes. It's not about holding the whole nation to ransom because of a minor labor dispute. Nigeria is greater than PENGASSAN. Nigeria is greater than each and every one of us here. I am not coming to you as a partisan. I am coming to you as a patriot in search of solutions to our national challenges. I wish to re-emphasize that in the interest of improving the fortunes, the government is hereby tasking the Nigerian Economic Summit Group in taking more than a passing interest in the matter. The government will expect far-reaching recommendations from the NESG in addressing this issue, even as the government is also taking steps to protect big industry and ensuring industrial harmony for the good of the nation.
Okay. So Shettima said something else at another time or place. If their response was based on this particular speech, this address, then it's difficult to understand how this means that the federal government supports Dangote and is against workers' rights. Now, mind you, I'm not for or against. I'm not allowed to hold that position. And maybe you didn't hear what the Vice President said properly. So when you listen again, hopefully you will. He called for a deeper sense of patriotism from both labor, that's the union, the side of PENGASSAN, and the organized private sector, that is Dangote. In other words, everybody be careful. Listen again.
I wish to call for caution, retrospection, and a deeper sense of patriotism from both the labor and the organized private sector.
Did you hear that? Deeper sense of patriotism from both labor and the organized private sector. That is, both PENGASSAN and Dangote.
I wish to call for reflection and a deeper patriotism from both the labor and the organized private sector.
Good. So it's not about holding the whole nation to ransom because of a labor dispute. That's also what he said. Nigeria is greater than PENGASSAN. And then he also said, Nigeria is greater than each and every one of us. Maybe they didn't hear it well, or we didn't hear it well, because as he was saying that each and every one of us, the applause drowned or silenced his voice.
I wish to call for caution, retrospection, and a deeper sense of patriotism from both the labor and the organized private sector in defining and improving the relationship between labor and industry in the interest of maintaining our steadily improving economic fortunes. It's not about holding the whole nation to ransom because of a minor labor dispute. Nigeria is greater than PENGASSAN. Nigeria is greater than each and every one of us.
All right. But even further, why you might think that it seems the government, because it's the vice president speaking, so you would imagine that that's the position of government, we're supporting Dangote, is also because of this that the vice president said just before he made the statement.
It's not. I want to dwell on something that is very dear, a topical issue that is very dear to the heart of every Nigerian. Aliko Dangote is not an individual. He's an institution. And he's a leading light in Nigeria's economic firmament. And how we treat this gentleman will determine how outsiders will judge us. If he had invested $10 billion in Microsoft, in Amazon, in Google, probably he might be worth $70 to $80 billion by now. But he opted to invest in his country, and we owe it to future generations to jealously protect, promote, preserve, and project the interests of this great Nigeria.
All right. So that's exactly what the vice president said. I saw some perspectives on social media, of course, where people play the ethnic card. Oh, the vice president sounded like this because he's from the north, and Dangote is also from the north. That's one way to look at it if that's how you want to. But you can't spot a single lie from what he said. He wasn't reading the Riot Act. He was speaking at the opening of the 2025 Nigeria Economic Summit in Abuja. That's where you have these kinds of conversations. Dangote invested in Nigeria where politicians take money out of it. And we have to protect the interest of that business. And while the union reserves the right to fight for workers, right? Nobody argues that. That's one of the many reasons why the union exists. They need to be careful and know the difference between the fight for industrial rights and economic sabotage. Because sometimes you may not know when you've crossed that line. And don't get me wrong. I'm not here supporting or saying anybody is right or wrong. This is why the government needs to function properly in its regulatory duties. That if Dangote is violating anybody's right, there should be sanctions. Nobody spares him because he built the only refinery that is functional. If Nupeng or PENGASSAN is also, thanks to the dispute, trying to hold the nation to ransom, the government should respond. But it paints an even clearer picture. That is the exact reason why Dangote does not want the union. Because what businessman would want disruption to his operations? His business held to ransom. So everybody needs to act right. The private sector, the public sector will be unable to buy petrol or gas costing 2 times high simply because two factions or sectors cannot get their act right. I think that's what the vice president was trying to say. And now, unfortunately, I sound like a spokesperson of the vice president. Moving on to our final headline, before I open the phone lines, ASUU is gearing up. While Nupeng and PENGASSAN are getting all the action, ASUU was not pleased with that. So barring any last-minute change, the Academic Staff Union of Universities will on Monday, the 13th of October, commence a 2-week nationwide warning strike to press home its demands from the federal government. It was contained in a memo tagged Strike Bulletin 1 sent to all branches and obtained by newsmen. The planned strike follows a 2-week ultimatum issued by the union asking the federal government to address its unresolved issues, including the signing and implementation of the renegotiated 2009 ASUU federal government agreement. Well, the federal government has a lot on its plate and it needs to settle everyone. The numbers to call are 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003. WhatsApp is 080-903-06416. Well, I have on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube at Nigeria Info PH. You can watch, listen, and engage. The big story is investigation on the way into River State Secretariat building fire. PENGASSAN fires back at Shettima, the vice president, over the Dangote Rift. And ASUU mobilizes for October 13 warning strike. Remember to turn off your radio. It's very important. Let's take a few messages before I take calls. Hector says if investigation to ascertain the actual cause of the inferno at State Secretariat is still on, while the head of service in a hurry to announce to the public that the fire was caused by electricity. Why didn't she wait for the outcome of the investigation? I smell foul play, Hector says. Well, Hector. Sam, greetings. I doubt if anything will come out from the investigation. How many years now? Police are still investigating how State House of Assembly complex was set ablaze. It's a big shame that the federal government has not found a solution to fix our refinery in order. See what Dangote is doing. I hear this afternoon Dangote has reduced the price of cooking gas. That's from Thank God. And the one at Clinton West says, fire engulfs some parts of River State Secretariat podium block. It's so sad to hear that the famous Secretariat was raised by fire. Let Governor Fubara order an unbiased investigation to find out the cause of the fire. Owanete says. Emeka calls from Elele. Hello, Emeka. Good afternoon.
Yes,
Good afternoon.
yes, about the Secretariat, I overheard that there's a fire outbreak at Secretariat. My dear brother, those things is called for investigation because there is something fishy. Since last week that our dear governor made a statement that he will investigate some permanent secretary that misbehaved during the emergency. Now, I am alleging that there is a monkey hand in the soup. No, that secretary cannot catch fire just like that. I am calling on River State government to please investigate that fire outbreak. There is something fishy. They should investigate all the directors, the permanent secretary that's in charge of those places. They should investigate them, holistic investigation. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Chidebere from Oyibo. Hello, Chidebere.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Talking about the state secretary, and it's better on the night, and in the morning, do we need to ask what? I think the pension board.
Chidebere, I'm sorry. I can't quite hear you. Something about the line is not working well. So call back if you can. But I get the idea. Of course, you have your suspicions. Lebari from Kana. Hello?
Hello, my brilliant brother in the temple of the press, Sam, I greet you this afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, Sam, I listened carefully to the head of pension board while narrating his own story, that all documents intact. but they forgot to switch off the electrical appliances. Is it the affected part where the fire happened, or at the pension board office that they forgot to switch off that electrical appliances? I think they should tell us the real story. And the head of service, they have not investigated. He came out yesterday, said the fire is due to electrical socket that were there. So how can they wait for investigation before reaching out to the public? They are like the police, giving us information when they have not investigated. And the issue of strike, I wonder why government, they are joking with our educational system. They don't value our educational system. I think it was yesterday, you and I were talking about 14 trillion for fuel subsidy removal. This money into our educational system. If strike will be the only way out, let them do it. They are not serious in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jude calls from Omuma. Hello, Jude. Good afternoon.
Yes, Sam. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sam, I'm particularly interested with what Governor Singh Fubara have done. Renovating and re-equipping the fire service in Port Harcourt. Imagine what would have happened if those fire service stations had not been renovated, equipped with firefighting equipment. For me, a governor has my admiration now as a governor who listens to the people. And what government is all about for me is service to the people. Years back, we all know what this state looks like. Whenever there was fire outbreak anywhere, my 3, my 4, anywhere, fire engulfed and destroyed a lot of properties without attention, without fire service, because they couldn't move, or the fire trucks